looking at a handbag that costs more than most houses? Not because of gold, not because of diamonds, but because of what happens in a series of rooms most people will never see. The Hermès Birkin, made from crocodile leather, can reach $100,000, sometimes more, and the reason isn't what you think. Let's go inside. It starts in a place that doesn't look like luxury at all, a crocodile farm. Controlled, regulated, quiet. Hermès doesn't buy skins from random suppliers. They don't show up at markets and pick through piles of hides. That's not how this works. For a bag that will eventually sell for 6 figures, the sourcing has to be precise, traceable, legal. So they work with specific farms that breed crocodiles under strict oversight. These aren't wild populations. These are managed environments where every animal is documented from birth. The species matter. Hermès uses 3 main types: the Niloticus crocodile from Africa, the Porosus crocodile from Australia, and sometimes the American alligator. Each one has slightly different scale patterns, different textures, different characteristics. But they all have one thing in common. They're all regulated under CITES. That's the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. It's an international agreement that tracks and controls trade in animals and plants that could be threatened by commercial use. Every crocodile skin that enters the Hermès supply chain has paperwork, permits, export documents, import clearances. The farms have to prove the animals were bred in captivity, that they weren't poached, that the population is sustainable. This isn't just about ethics, it's about legality. A single undocumented skin could shut down an entire production line, so the rules are followed carefully. But even with all that control, not every skin gets used. The farms grade their own stock. They measure the crocodiles. They check the hides while the animal is still alive. Size is the first filter. A crocodile that's too small won't produce enough usable leather. The scales will be tight. The belly section will be narrow. There won't be enough material to cut the panels for a Birkin. So only the larger animals are selected. But size alone isn't enough. The skin has to be clean. No scars, no scratches, no bite marks from other crocodiles, no insect damage. Crocodiles fight. They scrape against rocks. They get infections. All of that shows up on the hide. And for Hermès, any visible imperfection means rejection. The farms know this, so they separate the animals. They control the environment. They minimize damage. But even then, a percentage of skins won't meet the standard. Those skins get sold elsewhere, to other brands, to manufacturers who don't require perfection, but not to Hermès. The ones that do pass get shipped, preserved in salt, carefully packed, sent to the tannery. And that's where the second filter begins. When the raw skins arrive, they're inspected again. This time, the standards are even tighter, because now it's not just about damage, it's about symmetry. A crocodile hide is not uniform. The scales on the back are large and ridged, the scales on the sides are irregular. But the belly, the underside, that's where the luxury is. The belly scales are smaller, smoother, more evenly spaced. And for a Birkin, that's the only part that matters. But not just any belly section, it has to be symmetrical. Inspectors lay the skin flat. They look at the center line. The scales on the left side have to mirror the scales on the right side, not just in size, in shape, in spacing, in alignment. If the left side has scales that are slightly larger, the skin gets rejected. If the pattern doesn't flow evenly, rejected. If there's even a small scar that wasn't visible during the first inspection, rejected. This is the stage where the majority of skins get eliminated. You might have a hide from a large, healthy crocodile, perfectly preserved, no obvious damage, but if the belly scales don't align symmetrically, it's not going into a Birkin. Because here's what happens when you use asymmetrical leather. When the bag is assembled, the scales won't match on both sides. One panel will look different from the other. The eye will catch it. It'll look unbalanced, wrong. And a bag that costs $100,000 can't look wrong. So the inspectors are ruthless. They're not looking for good enough. They're looking for perfect. And perfect is rare. For a single Birkin, they need enough belly leather to cut the front panel, the back panel, the flap, and the handles. That means the usable section has to be large and flawless. Most hides don't offer that. The ones that pass move to the next stage, tanning. And this is where the transformation really begins. A raw crocodile hide doesn't look like luxury. It's stiff, grayish, rough. It smells like preserved meat. The scales are dull. The texture is uneven. It's hard to imagine this becoming something you'd want to touch, let alone carry. Tanning changes everything, but it's not fast. The process starts with cleaning. The skin is washed. Any remaining tissue is removed. Then it's descaled on the back and sides. The belly scales stay intact, but they're cleaned carefully. Any residue trapped between the scales is flushed out. Then comes liming. The hide is soaked in a lime solution. This breaks down proteins, softens the structure, makes the leather more pliable. Without this step, the leather would stay rigid, unusable. After liming, the skin is washed again, neutralized. Then the actual tanning begins. Hermès uses two main methods, chrome tanning or vegetable tanning. Chrome tanning uses chromium salts. It's faster. It produces a softer, more flexible leather. Vegetable tanning uses natural tannins from tree bark. It's slower. The leather is firmer, more structured. For crocodile Birkins, the method depends on the finish they want, but either way, the tanning takes days. The skins are submerged in large drums, rotated slowly. The tanning agents penetrate the fibers. The chemical structure of the hide changes. It stops being skin. It becomes leather. But even after tanning, the hide isn't ready. Now comes the dye, and this is where it gets complicated. Crocodile skins don't absorb color easily. The surface is dense. The dye has to be forced in. So the skins are dyed in stages. First layer, let it dry. Second layer, let it dry. Sometimes a third, a fourth. Each layer deepens the color, evens out the tone, but it also has to penetrate between the scales, into the crevices. If the dye pools unevenly, the color will look blotchy. For standard colors, this process is controlled but straightforward. Black, brown, navy, the dye is applied evenly, the skin is dried, done. But for special finishes, it's different. Take the Himalaya Birkin. It's one of the most expensive versions. The leather has a gradient, light at the center, darkening towards the edges. It's meant to mimic the colors of the Himalayan mountains at dawn. This isn't done with a single dye bath. It's done by hand. Artisans airbrush the skin, layer by layer, blending the tones, lightening some areas, deepening others. It's subtle, controlled, and it takes hours. If the gradient is too harsh, it looks artificial. Too subtle, and it disappears. The artisan has to judge it by eye, adjust as they go. There's no template. After dyeing comes fat liquoring. The leather is treated with oils and fats. This step is critical. It keeps the leather flexible, prevents it from drying out and cracking over time. The oils are massaged into the hide, worked between the scales. The amount matters. Too much, and the leather feels greasy. Too little, and it becomes brittle. Then the skin is dried, but not in open air. It's placed in a controlled room, temperature regulated, humidity monitored. The drying has to be slow, even. If one part of the hide dries faster than another, it warps, shrinks unevenly, becomes unusable. This entire tanning process can take several weeks, sometimes longer for complex finishes. And even now, some hides don't make it. The dye might not take evenly. The texture might feel off after fat liquoring. The scales might not have the right sheen. Those get pulled, sold as lower-grade exotic leather, used for belts, wallets, smaller items. But the ones that pass, the ones that survive every stage of tanning, those move forward. And that's when the real craftsmanship begins. The tanned leather arrives at the cutting table, and this is where luxury is defined by what gets thrown away. A master cutter receives the hide. They've been doing this for years, sometimes decades. They know crocodile skin. They know how the scales behave, how the leather stretches, where the strong points are, where the weak points hide. They lay the skin flat, study it, run their hands over the surface, feeling for inconsistencies that the eye might miss. Then they begin mapping. The belly section is the prize. That's where the front panel and the back panel will come from. But the cutter can't just cut two rectangles and call it done. They have to find the perfect section, the part where the scales are most uniform, most symmetrical. They mark the center line. This is critical.
The scales on the left have to mirror the scales on the right, not just approximately, exactly. If the scale pattern shifts even slightly off-center, the panels won't match. One side of the bag will look different from the other, and that's not acceptable. So the inspectors are ruthless. They're not looking for good enough. They're looking for perfect, and perfect is rare. For a single Birkin, they need enough belly leather to cut the front panel, the back panel, the flap, and the handles. That means the usable section has to be large and flawless. Most hides don't offer that. The ones that pass move to the next stage, tanning. And this is where the transformation really begins. A raw crocodile hide doesn't look like luxury. It's stiff, grayish, rough. It smells like preserved meat. The scales are dull. The texture is uneven. It's hard to imagine this becoming something you'd want to touch, let alone carry. Tanning